Hi, good afternoon.
Good
Thank you for
afternoon.
well, thank you so much for being here. And I just want to first acknowledge that this is an opportunity for Emerge to celebrate Black women leaders. And we are incredibly thankful to be here today with Chairwoman Nicole Love Hendrickson of Gwinnett County, Georgia.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. It is an honor to be recognized and to be on this platform sharing my story with the Emerge Network.
Fantastic. And so you were just elected in November, and you are the first Black woman to have this role. And Gwinnett County is the second largest, most populated county in the state. And you're right outside of Atlanta. And as we were talking a bit earlier, you have gone from a local hero to a national celebrity. And what does that mean to you?
It's a very humbling feeling. Gwinnett County is 202 years old, and this is the first time it's ever had a Black woman at the helm leading a county government. We are the second largest county in Georgia, population wise, and the most diverse county in the state of Georgia. And this is the first time I'm the first African American woman and only the third woman in the 202-year history to lead the county as a whole. So it's truly a humbling experience, especially knowing how far we've come as Black women when we couldn't even vote just 55 years ago. So to come this far and to be on a ballot and have an option for Black women to be able to vote and celebrate and see versions of themselves in leadership positions is truly an empowering moment for me. And I am deeply humbled and grateful to be in this position, and I don't take it lightly.
Definitely. And so, what inspired you to run for office?
Oh my gosh, I had so many women who've inspired me to run for office. And I've always lived a life of public service. I'm a social worker. I went into the helping profession just because I enjoyed helping people and working with youth. I've worked in education, I've worked in government, I've worked in community and nonprofit based entities. And I've always just been inspired by people and helping people. And when the opportunity presented itself to run for office, and we didn't have any women on the ticket for this race, I said, you know what, this is my chance. I think it's my time. I'm starting to see the stars align. And given the fact that 65% of our voting block in Gwinnett represented Black women, I had to give them an option. And I was the only woman on the ticket running against 5 men. So this was about options. This was about representation. This was about ensuring that we could have our moment to lead and to be represented in a very historic race. And as I've stated, I'm truly honored to had the opportunity to seize the moment. So many women have inspired me who have come before me: Shirley Chisholm, Stacey Abrams, Kamala Harris, so many others. And I stand on their shoulders and I see myself in them, and I want younger girls to see themselves in me. And so it's truly empowering opportunity, and happy to have this and be here. Yeah.
That's fantastic. You are definitely part of a long and proud tradition of Black women
Yeah.
in leadership. So thank you for doing that. And I wonder, you were talking about being in a crowded field, right? Running for this position. What was that experience like?
So my primary was a very crowded race. Like, as I've stated, I ran against 5 other men, many of whom were attorneys. They were former elected officials. They were established in their careers. So it was very intimidating. I said, there's no way that I can go against 5 men and it not be a challenge. But I said, I'm up for the challenge. I'm going to do it. And, I stayed true to my core values and had a clear vision and executed that vision. I communicated that vision in the midst of a pandemic. I was able to transform my hat of a candidate to a hat of a social worker and kicked into high gear and leveraged the opportunity to serve in that capacity, helping people get needs and what they needed and access to jobs and information when, things were just falling apart when we got into the race. I got in the race early this year. And then as soon as I qualified, the pandemic hit. And so, I stayed steadfast. true to my values, true to who I was as a person and as a woman, because I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And I also knew that there were a lot of people that were rooting for me, that were counting on me, that needed my voice to be in this leadership position. And I continue to fight and stay the course. And I won my primary. I made it to a runoff, but I was a clear lead in my primary, made it to a runoff. My opponent saw the writing on the wall, decided to suspend his campaign because there was no clear path to victory for him. And so I was able to win and secure my nomination, my Democratic nomination in the primary. And then I went on to defeat my opponent, another male, on the Republican ticket in the general. So my Republican opponent, I was able to defeat him in November. And again, steadfast, stay true to my core values, communicated a very strong vision for what I wanted to achieve in this county. And it really reflected the voice and the values of my community, and they saw that.
Wow. And so can you tell us a little bit about what that vision is? Because I know you're very interested in economic development and accessible transportation that's reliable. So if you could just give us a hint a bit more about that, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, so I started this race with the desire to ensure that government was being accessible, inclusive, and equitable. And we had challenges in our community with lack of access to opportunities, lack of access to mobility options, lack of access to jobs. And the people who were impacted the most by COVID were our communities of color. Well, 75% of our county is reflected by racial and ethnic minorities. And so the systemic inequities really were exposed in the midst of COVID. And we knew those were issues even before COVID. And I've always ran on a platform that we need to start addressing some of these systemic inequities and how they're impacting our communities of color. And so running on ensuring that we were getting services to the people who needed them. Because if we did not continue serving them and meeting their needs, well, they're going to continue falling further down the economic ladder. And if we don't put policies in place to prevent that, then there's going to be a deeper burden on government. There's going to be a deeper burden on public services. And we could work to prevent that now. And so as a social worker and as somebody who's trained in social welfare policy, that was always at the center and the core of my platform is let's look at addressing the systemic policies that have prevented our communities from accessing opportunities and transit, economic opportunities via jobs and workforce development, making sure that our youth have access to training opportunities and that we're not creating economic deserts in our community and economically depressed areas, that we are addressing housing options, that we are addressing income and how we can create ways for families to move up that economic ladder. And so it was more of a comprehensive outlook on addressing challenges, not just a single system, but how we can address these issues comprehensively, because that's what social workers do.
Yeah.
But my platform really was about addressing a lot of those systemic inequities.
And it looks like your history as a social worker allows you to have this comprehensive view of how they exist and how they're interconnected. And so your representation as a social worker and as a Black woman is so incredibly important. And for you, why do you think that representation matters?
It does. We don't have, just think about when you think of social workers, you don't think about policymakers, but because we are trained to look at the totality of the circumstances, we're trained to look at ecosystems, we're trained to look at a collaborative, evidence-based approach. I think that is the perfect fit for a policy-making role. And we need more social workers going into policy-making positions, whether it's city council or school board or county commission or Congress, because of the approach that we take to policymaking. We look at the totality of the circumstance and how we can address inequities from so many different angles. And I think that representation just lends to good governance and good policymaking.
Definitely. I'm going to move to Gwinnett County. I feel like I need to.
We want you here.
Thank you. And so, when you're speaking, it's so powerful. And I have the feeling that every Black woman in Georgia is a powerhouse from what I've seen. So I'm incredibly thankful for the work that you all are doing. And I wonder, like, after this election, and we know that the work that Latasha Brown and Stacey Abrams is a decade in the making. So it doesn't happen overnight. And so could you tell us a little bit about what that community engagement and what that engagement work looks like from your end, and if other states do you think can replicate that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it really speaks to when people see themselves in advocacy and politics and leadership positions, it really inspires that collective action and that will to be inspired to move. And I think Stacey Abrams had really sparked a lot of that movement 4 years ago when she initially ran for the governor of the state, and when she unfortunately did not win that seat, she started Fair Fight. And Fair Fight galvanized an entire coalition of change agents across the state and across communities and even nationally to start pushing for more equal and fair access to elections, representation. And people just got inspired and they saw what a difference one person can make to start to spur these other change agents and advocates. And people want a piece of that. They want to feel connected to that. They want to feel that they have a reason to be involved in something because it benefits them. And Black women, a lot of races, including recently, have been on the backs of Black women. We are a powerful voting bloc. Candidates always seek out Black women when they need our vote. But given that we have so much power in our collective voice, we should be the ones represented in those decision making, not just a voting bloc. Our power is more than just voting. It's being at the table, driving decisions, mobilizing our communities to action. We bring so much to the table. And I think when other women start to see that, they feel inspired, like, wow, I'm part of a demographic that is really just killing the game right now.
Yeah. And so how can we then empower? Because I see you and I see Lucy McBath and I see Stacey Abrams and I see what Ms. Brown is doing as well.
Yes.
And, and I think, wow, like right now, there's so much interest and attention, even though like this is historic, right? Black women have been at the center of fighting for our rights for democracy, have been at the center of fighting for our human rights, have been at the center for fighting for education and fair housing and high quality public health. Black women have always been at the center. And finally, other people are starting to see that. And because of the way that our history is written, even other Black people who didn't see it before are now starting to see it, right? So how do we empower Black women of all ages to step into the arena, the formal arena of running for office, if that's something they're interested in?
We have to support Black women. We have to show that the challenges that they'll face, they can be overcome. I know what helped me was having a network of other Black women to say, you got this, you can do this, I'm here to help you. Don't let the stigma define you. You define who you are. Being a woman, being a mother, I also have a 7-year-old son. There were a lot of negative attributes because I was a young Black mother. And unfortunately, the stereotypes sometimes would outweigh my vision. Well, not my vision, but they would try to derail me. People would use that to try to derail my vision. And I would say to women who are looking to run for office, no matter if you're young, don't let that define you. Don't let that sway you. If you're a mother, a single mother, a Black woman, a Latina woman, somebody who speaks a different language, you come from another country. These are all reasons why you should run for office. And we as Black women need to provide that support system to other women to show them that it can be done. We can overcome these hurdles. We can overcome these obstacles. We've shown for decades that we can do it. Back to, the suffrage movement, and we weren't even included when the women were given the right to vote, we weren't even included. We still had to wait decades before we were given, after the women's right to vote was passed, still had to wait decades for that to happen and pass down to Black women. But we stayed the course, and we have to continue doing that and provide that support network to each other. And I'm always willing to mentor, to talk to inspire other young Black women if they're interested in running for office. I want to be here because I know what it's like, especially running against men in a very crowded and male-dominated field. I think it's important that women have that support and know that this can be done.
That's awesome. And my final question, if I may, how has the Emerge Network been helpful to you as a candidate and now in your current role?
Oh my goodness. So many great things to say about the Emerge Network, first of all, because I was a first-time candidate running in a race with established politicians. I had no idea that I needed a campaign plan. I had no idea I had to raise money. I had no idea I had to put a team together, communicate my plan and my vision. Emerge, I attended the boot camp in Atlanta. It was my first introduction to running for office. And I was so inspired by all the women who were around the table, inspired, like, we are going to do this. We're going to win our races. But the training was invaluable. The lessons that I've learned from the speakers, the content really helped to position me and poise me for a very strong race. And the Emerge Bootcamp and even the network beyond the bootcamp was very helpful because I was able to access resources, become part of a network. I could talk to other women who have run for office, who are were currently in office. And even a lot of the Emerge staff were very resourceful in helping me get connected to other resources. And I am so incredibly grateful for the Emerge Bootcamp and that it came to Atlanta for the first time, because I probably would have had to go out of state to get the training, but they decided to move it to Atlanta last year for the first time. And I'm so thankful. It was the perfect time. And it was a great opportunity for me to learn and strengthen my campaign and get ready to go.
Oh, that's so great. And thank you so much, Chairwoman Hendrickson, for your time today and for being part of this conversation.
Absolutely. Happy to speak with you and my Emerge sisters. Thank you again for inspiring me and empowering me. And I hope that I can pay it forward and be part of a network that inspires that next generation of leaders. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thanks to everyone for joining us today at Emerge's celebration of Black women leaders. I'm Danielle Pacifico-Kogan, and I'm the board chair of Emerge. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow up on our social media channels to learn more about the organization and how you can participate and become a woman who runs for office and wins. Have a good afternoon.